The 2021 NASCAR season has been announced. Which track will not see a race in 2021? And Talladega is this upcoming weekend. We'll tell you about the points championship scenarios. And we report more on Oliver Askew and the road to race again at IndyCar. Grid Tonight is on right now. Hello everyone, Joe Samaniego here along with Kobe Lambis from the Podium Finish. Busy day in all of motorsports, a lot to report on. We'll definitely get started. Of course, we'll do a little bit as well about IndyCar. Oliver Askew sideline for this upcoming race weekend. But of course, we're starting with the NASCAR 2021 schedule, which was announced today. Very exciting day. I know a lot of NASCAR fans have been waiting for this big day. Definitely in the chat room, if you want to ask your questions, share your thoughts and opinions about the upcoming schedule. We'd love to hear from you. Chat about it right here on the air. So, of course, the 2021 NASCAR season, the schedule has come out and has really shaken up the industries. We'll start off the simplest way, the tracks that we're not going to see in 2021. Chicagoland Speedway, owned by NASCAR, it loses its one annual date. Kentucky Motor Speedway, owned by SMI, loses their date as well. So a bit of a surprise, Chicagoland has hosted 19 races. 2020, the race did not take place due to the pandemic, and Kentucky has hosted 10 Cup Series races, all of them with the Quaker State 400 sponsorship. So definitely want to hear from you, the fans, what do you thought about Chicago and Kentucky losing their race date? Kobe, with both tracks losing their race date, is there any concern about both tracks maybe not seeing a NASCAR Cup Series race in the future again?
Well, with these situations, though, it's really unfortunate. Kentucky and Chicagoland have been a part of the NASCAR schedules for a while now, and feel bad for everyone who worked at those tracks and they won't have anything to do anymore. Well, for the time being, at least, and I feel like Kentucky still might have a better shot at having a future over Chicagoland because IndyCar is going to be looking for some ovals, and IndyCar has been linked to Kentucky Speedway several times in recent years, and maybe Kentucky Speedway could join the IndyCar schedule and coming up in the future. But Chicagoland, that's the track that I'm concerned about the most. Understanding, there's been some business that's been done around the track, which really leaves Chicagoland in limbo. It's always, unfortunate to see these tracks leave the schedule. But as we all know, Joe, this is a business world, and business can be quite cruel. And Chicagoland and Kentucky, they were just on the receiving end this time.
Yeah, both of them. I know a lot of fans have been expressing, they're bummed to see Chicagoland gone. Of course, the hard part in the business, we've heard the fans, they want less 1.5 mile ovals. Well, where do you take away another 1.5 mile oval? We know Texas, they're going to usually have 2 dates. Atlanta has been down to 1 date. We'll get to Atlanta in a little bit. Chicagoland and Kentucky, both of them are the newer tracks. Both of them combined 29 races. Something had to go, and it's really unfortunate, especially for Chicagoland, of course, the Midwest area. But definitely this is where it leads into some of the new tracks that we're going to see this upcoming 2021 season. The new tracks, of course, we know about Nashville Superspeedway. That was announced earlier. Their track date comes at the expense of Dover, going from 2 races down to 1. But it's been made official. Circuits of the America, Austin, Texas is going to see NASCAR Cup Series, and in fact, all the NASCAR National Series, and Road America, 4th of July weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series on the 4th of July day is going to be the race there. People haven't wanted a road course for years, been asking. We used to have 2, then we got the Roval. Now we have in total 6 road courses, 1 on the West Coast, 1 on the Southwest, 2 in the Midwest, counting Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Northeast with Watkins Glen, the Roval, and the South Seas. Is this the perfect balance of road courses that NASCAR needed?
Yeah, certainly. I think 6 road courses, 6 points paying road course races. I think that's certainly a great balance for now. I'm not sure if they're going to add any more. Then, if you wanted to add the Busch Clash at the beginning of the season, be on the Daytona road course, that makes 7 road courses. So I really believe that NASCAR is listening to its fan base. The fan base has been asking for more short tracks. We didn't really get that at the Cup level, more short tracks, but we got a Bristol dirt race, which we'll cover in a minute. But I feel like adding more road course races to the schedule is certainly a positive step in the right direction. For so many years, we only had two road courses on the schedule: Sonoma out in California, and then Watkins Glen up in upstate New York. And then came to Charlotte Roval a couple of years ago. Then we had three road courses, and now those three road courses have doubled into six. Ever since the very first NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Road America, I said I want to see a Cup race there someday. And every year, anticipating the schedules coming out, I'm thinking, please let Road America be on the schedule. Please let Road America be on the schedule. And now, after all of these years, I'm finally getting my Road America Cup race. Everybody who knows me know I've been asking for Road America for so many years, and to finally sit on the schedule, and especially July 4th weekend, that is certainly a dream come true, and I can't wait to see the NASCAR Cup Series take on the 4 Mile Monster Road Course, which is one of my favorite road courses in North America. And then the Xfinity Series put on a great show a couple of months ago at the Indianapolis Road Course, and as soon as that race ended, I said this race was so entertaining. I don't see us doing the Breaker Art 400 anymore, and here we are. No more Breaker Art 400 on the oval, going to the road course. And then it's really interesting that they decided to take away 1 points race from Texas, give Texas the All-Star race, which we'll cover in a moment, and give it to the Circuit of the Americas. COTA is certainly a really interesting track that has hosted IMSA, the FIA World Endurance Championship, IndyCar, and Formula One. I certainly think COTA is going to be a lot of fun, and that and the track actually announced that we're going to see all three NASCAR National Series at the track, and I think the NASCAR Truck Series, that's going to be a lot of fun watching those trucks draft down the long COTA backstretch.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Circus of America is a great track, a lot of fun, and to see the stock cars on a restart racing up that hill for that first corner, really going to be something else. Of course, part of it is SMI, owners of Texas Motor Speedway. They'll be leasing the track and promoting it. So definitely a business deal there to make that possible. And then NASCAR, with the loss of Chicago, doing the same thing for Road America, promoting that. So definitely business deals, definitely parties working together to bring something really fun for the fans. Now, of course, with the addition of the new tracks as well as COTA, Texas Motor Speedway will still host two races, but one of them is the All-Star race. So the only points race is much later in the season. In fact, it's in the playoffs. The other big news, Atlanta Motor Speedway will host two races. It's been a really long time since we've seen Atlanta Motor Speedway host two events. The second event will be the Quaker State 400, which of course used to be the sponsor of the Kentucky race. And that's going to be in July. Bristol, the spring race, we know for years they haven't sold out, low turnout. Well, this upcoming spring is going to be now a dirt race. First time since 1970, the Cup Series will do one dirt race. Definitely for all our viewers, let us know, what do you think of the dirt race in Bristol? Is that something that you're interested or more interested in to go to Bristol? Auto Club Speedway is going to be now the first race of the West Coast Swing. Of course, we all anticipate Auto Club is going to be reconfigured to a short track, brand new short track in the West Coast and the LA market. That's going to be really huge. And then Darlington, Nashville, their races are going to be low downforce. Now, Darlington, of course, is going to have two races, the 400-mile and, of course, the Southern 500. Homestead, it's now the second race of the year. And Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Brickyard 400, is now going to be a road course race. So let's take a look at the new 2021 season, starting with the first 10 races. It's going to be really exciting to see that we got the Daytona 500, Miami, Auto Club, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Atlanta. Then there's the big change. Bristol, the dirt race, Martinsville, Richmond, Talladega. First 10 races of the season. What stands out to you the most, Kobe?
Well, right here when you're looking at the schedule, yeah, I think it's a real great idea to start off the season in Florida. You're gonna have the Busch Clash, all of that Daytona 500. Then you're going straight to Homestead, Miami. So you're you knock out Florida, one trip, and then got the West Coast Swing, and then come back to a portion of the schedule which which a lot of fans have been familiar with now for a while. And then the one race that really stands out, obviously, is that Bristol dirt race. I think that race is either going to be really good or it's going to be really bad. And I know I've seen a lot of pushback from fans on social media about this dirt race, because a lot of people feel like that we need to go to an actual dirt track instead of just dumping a bunch of dirt on Bristol. Because NASCAR Truck Series went to Eldora, for several years now. It seems like that race is in limbo right now, though, and people wondering why can't we go to a place like Eldora? Why can't we go to the home of the Knoxville National? Why can't we go to Williams Grove or even the Charlotte dirt track, Texas dirt track, the Las Vegas dirt track? You know, dirt tracks that would be more doable. But NASCAR decided to settle on Bristol, and I'm actually not going to be like no no no. I don't want to see a Bristol dirt race. I'm actually gonna sit down, give it a chance, and just see where it goes from there because I'm actually really intrigued by the prospect of a dirt race at Bristol. It might be great, or it might not be great. But for now, I'm gonna sit back, digest the schedule over throughout the rest of this year, season, into the off season, and when 2021 season starts, gonna be anticipating this race. And and actually for the Bristol dirt race, I think they should do something NASCAR, something similar to what they did with the Daytona Road Course, where they only allowed a driver to compete in one race instead of having a cup driver try to run in the truck race, Xfinity race, try to gain experience at the Bristol dirt track. I think it was certainly even the playing field if we only allowed them to one race. And I also think it would open the door up to have some dirt track ringers come out and try and try out NASCAR. Love to see Bobby Pierce come back, Rico Abreu, and one guy who didn't get to run the truck race at Eldora that got canceled this year because of the pandemic, Tyler Sunshine Courtney, dirt racing star. I certainly think that at our Bristol dirt race in the spring race, really been struggling in recent years. I think that could certainly add some spice to the Bristol Motor Speedway's history, send a return to dirt.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be something where seeing Bristol hosting a dirt race, I know there's a lot of fans that are saying, why not go to a dirt track? One of the big things I see, the capacity. If they could sell out the Bristol Motor Speedway with the dirt race, that's 160,000 fans. I can't think of any dirt facility that could have that kind of capacity. We're anticipating a large number of people interested to see the first dirt race. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Bristol works out. If that race becomes a big hit and it sells out, it's been a long time since the spring race has sold out. And of course, we all know Bristol, ever since they changed the banking back in 2007, it still hasn't been 100% the same. In fact, this last race of Bristol had less than 6 cautions. So definitely this could be something to get people excited about the spring race again and looking forward to the spring race. Try to sell it out again. It's been a really long time. Now, the second part of the season, and this is where I think it's going to be the most trickiest part of the season because we got Kansas, but then look at 12 to 20. Darlington, track too tough to tame. The Monster Mile, Dover. Then the brand new Circus of the Americas, the Coca-Cola 600, the longest race of the year. Sonoma, road course, our brand new Nashville Super Speedway, the Pocono doubleheaders, and then we end that string of races with Road America, another new road course, and then back at Atlanta Motor Speedway. This makes it where it seems like if you want to win, especially the first 11 races, before we get to that stretch, because that stretch looks really difficult. And then, of course, once we pass that stretch, you only got 6 races left. Does this really intensifies the first 11 races? Because the next group just look really difficult. And then after that, we only got 6 races in the regular season.
Oh, Joe, this is certainly, in my opinion, one of the most. It's going to be one of the most challenging parts of the schedule. You have 3 road courses in that stretch. You got Sonoma, which they're going to be, all the drivers are used to that track, and then we're going to have brand new Circuit of the Americas, which nobody's been around there on a stock car, but I believe it was Tony Stewart when he was there with Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen, the Haas Formula One drivers. Yeah, so it's going to be really crazy. So NASCAR Circuit of the Americas for the first time. Also have Road America. A lot of the younger drivers in the Cup Series have been to Road America because they competed in the Xfinity Series, but some of the older veterans in the series, they've never seen this track or even driven one lap on Road America. So I think the younger drivers who come up through the Xfinity Series, they're gonna have an advantage when the Cup Series goes to Road America because they've actually been on the track before. And some of the veterans you think who will have more experience, I think that they'll obviously still be competitive and catch up, but they're gonna be behind just like maybe half a step or one step. But overall, I think Road America is going to be a great race. So really crazy with 3 road courses. Then got the new track. It's a new track to the schedule, but like it's like inviting the old friend back in. Yeah, got Nashville on schedule, and then got Darlington the 400 miler, and then Coca-Cola 600 Pocono doubleheader. There's a lot going on in that part of the schedule.
A lot in that part of the schedule. I know Fox Sports, they tweeted a picture with Jeff Gordon, and they said that they really worked with NASCAR to bring something where every week showcase different disciplines. And that particular stretch from race 12 to 20, that's going to be insane. I know if I'm a crew chief, especially if I'm in a team such as RPM, where we're going to have a brand new driver, but we're building up, our goal is to try to get a win within that first 11 races. Because that next stretch is going to be almost a wild card just about every race. It's going to be really close competition. And I think it's just going to really intensify because once you get that stretch done, we're down to then the last bit of the regular season. And there we are, New Hampshire, Watkins Glen. Then we have the new one, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the road course, Michigan, just one race. Michigan did lose one date, and Daytona to end the regular season. So even though it doesn't seem as intimidating as that 12 to 20 stretch, this is still going to be really intense if you don't have a win and you're trying to get in the playoffs. Of course, we start the playoffs with the Southern 500. Richmond, Bristol is the cutoff race, Las Vegas, and Talladega. When it comes to these races, Kobe, and we see the counter that we got so far going on with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, essentially we're not going to be racing at the Brickyard 400 as the oval, the road course. Do you feel like this is going to negatively impact the name of winning the Brickyard 400?
No, absolutely not. In my opinion, when you win an Indy, no matter what it is, it's special. Even if it's a bicycle race around the oval, I'd still be excited to kiss the bricks. Or even if it's go-kart race, still special winning at Indy. And looking at the Brickyard 400 during those early years of the event, it was deemed one of the crown jewels of NASCAR. Everyone wanted to win the Brickyard 400, and if you look at some of the older videos on YouTube, you can see the crowds. People flock coming to the Brickyard 400, and over years, it seemed like the novelty of the event just wore off, and then the crowds, started to thin out, and then it got to a level where it was just really sad looking at the crowds every year at the Brickyard 400, and I just feel like the prestige of the event just wore off, and I am actually sad to see the Brickyard 400 go. Yeah, yes, it certainly wasn't the most exciting race, and yeah, people always say that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval is isn't a track equipped it to produce the best type of stock car racing, and and overall, as much as I hate to see the Brickyard 400 go, I feel like we could certainly be starting a new tradition here with the Indianapolis Road Course because the Xfinity Series they put on an amazing show a few months ago. I believe it was Chase Briscoe won. It was him, Austin Cindric, AJ Allmendinger duking out for the win. It was really crazy, insane, good racing, and I think the NASCAR Cup Series is going to put on a great show as well. And with the new tradition I'm talking about, it's going to be a NASCAR Cup IndyCar doubleheader, and I feel like this doubleheader could open up the door for some crossovers. Maybe not NASCAR drivers driving an IndyCar because that's a little more because that seems like you have to go through more loopholes to get from a NASCAR Cup car to an Indy car. But I could certainly see some IndyCar drivers hopping in an Xfinity or even a Cup car to try that out. I think it would be really cool to see crossovers in those two series.
And one driver that could potentially be a crossover driver that weekend, Jimmy Johnson. He'll be there for the IndyCar race. He got to deal with Chip Ganassi. He could race a third car for Chip Ganassi. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe an IndyCar driver besides Jimmy Johnson go over the Cup Series or the Xfinity race for sure. So it's definitely going to be really exciting. I know for me, seeing Indianapolis Motor Speedway going to the oval from the oval to the road course, it's not, in my opinion, devaluing the event. As you said, winning in Indianapolis, where it's a bicycle race, MotoGP race, Indy 500, it is special. I know even on Grid Girls, we had Aaron, GT4 Americas, they're going to be racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Everybody wants to say they want an Indianapolis, because if you can say I want an Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that is huge, no matter what kind of race. So definitely for all the people that think the end, the Brickyard is sort of devalued. No, this is still going to be the race everyone wants to win because it's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's almost no other track besides the Daytona 500 that I think stands to that stature. Now, when it comes to the last bit of the season, the Charlotte Roval is the cutoff race for the round of 12. Then, of course, the round of 8, Texas, Kansas, Martinsville. Of course, this is Texas' only points race. Martinsville is the cutoff, and then Phoenix will be hosting the season finale for the second year in a row. So definitely it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when it comes to the following years with the possibility of rotating that championship race around. Now, of course, the playoffs, they stay for the most part unchanged. But already we're seeing a lot of drama, especially once we get to the playoffs with this race last week. A lot of changes that have occurred in the playoff standing. Do you feel the playoff races are right now in a good state where we don't need to talk about major changes to the playoffs for NASCAR?
And before I answer your question, wanted to add to what you said in previously about Jimmy Johnson, who's going to be racing all the road and street courses next year in IndyCar, and he could be one of the drivers to cross over and do both events, both IndyCar and NASCAR on the same weekend. Another name I think we should keep an eye on is now 3-time Supercars champion in Australia, Scott McLaughlin. I feel like if we see Scott McLaughlin next year in the Team Penske IndyCar program. And it's also been mentioned that McLaughlin could also make some select starts in NASCAR as well, with 6 road course races on the Cup Series schedule next year. And if they're going to bring Scott McLaughlin to the United States to race IndyCar full time, I feel like it would certainly be a crime if we did not see Scott McLaughlin in a NASCAR road course race. I certainly think he'd bring a lot of excitement, and the fans would be really excited to see Scott McLaughlin racing in both IndyCar and NASCAR. And to answer your questions about the playoff races, I feel like that NASCAR definitely nailed it completely. The only real major changes is Texas and Kansas just swapping the date for next year. But overall, they did a really good job with those playoff races, and I'm certainly pleased with all of the hard work that they've done.
A lot of hard work. The playoffs this year, it feels like a lot of people are generally excited about, especially once we get to the pre-race preview of Talladega this upcoming weekend. A lot going on. Now, of course, with the races, there were a couple of things that we didn't mention, but are still significant. The Busch Clash, that'll be run on the Daytona road course. Of course, they had announced this earlier this year. They raced the road course in response to Watkins Glen being canceled. Then, of course, Texas will have the All-Star race in June. So that's going to be really exciting. That'll be the last race for Fox that season. Now, of course, it's been a big change. Definitely, I would say one of the biggest schedule changes for NASCAR Cup Series in the last 50 years. Of course, we still have the pandemic going on. Considering the pandemic situation and all the hard work they put into making this as best as they could, did NASCAR deliver a schedule worthy of all the hype we've been waiting?
Yeah, I feel like it was definitely worth all the hype. Honestly, with the pandemic situation, I was actually starting to get a little worried that we weren't going to see the type of changes that we were going to see. I know a lot of people have been wondering and hoping, are we going to see new tracks on the schedule, or is it just going to be the same? In recent years, when NASCAR trying to play out the track contracts and stuff, they tried a bunch of things like swapping races around. Try to make the schedules have some freshness to it, but adding new racetracks. I certainly feel like that it's going to bring a lot of people in, and I feel like that we certainly have a greater variety of tracks now with the mile and a half, the road courses, the short tracks. Now we got a dirt track. It feels like the only thing that NASCAR is really missing is a street course. And maybe, just maybe, as we head into the 2020s, we may see a NASCAR street car race in the Cup Series.
The street course will be really exciting. Something else, of course, a lot of questions. Which street? Would it be an existing one that we see like Long Beach, or something brand new that NASCAR is going to work with a city to make that happen? It's going to be really interesting. The big thing, especially with the pandemic, they really delivered a fantastic schedule. I know there's some people, they would want to see a dirt race at a proper dirt track, maybe another road course here or there. But overall, this schedule, I think, really delivered on all the hype we had hauled all the rumors throughout the entire year of this could be a big change. They delivered. Now, of course, with the pandemic, we may have seen some of the pandemic concerns in the way events were scheduled. Homestead is the second event, which is unusual. Everyone's in Florida for the Daytona 500, go back to Charlotte, then back to Florida. But of course, once that's done, you don't have to go to Florida for a long time. California will be done the following weekend. Of course, California, Sonoma didn't occur because of the pandemic. Do you think the schedule placement for both these races were in part because of the pandemic situation? Or do you think it's going to be something where we might see that second, third race change a bit? Or is this just something where permanently we might see Homestead be that second race of the year?
Well, I certainly think that this might be a permanent change. In all honesty, it just makes sense to knock out Florida in one stop instead of go to Daytona, West Coast swing, and then Atlanta, Bristol, whatever, and then back to Homestead, kind of like what they were gonna do this season before the pandemic hit. But yeah, and I feel like and it's really crazy because when they announced this year's schedule last year, I was really upset that Homestead was not going to be the finale anymore because growing up watching NASCAR, Homestead was the championship track to me. There was something special about Homestead, and I didn't want it to become just an ordinary track on the NASCAR schedule. And and, and watching the Dixie Vodka 400 a few months ago, I was actually really sad seeing that, and now all of that sadness is really worn off. And having Homestead's second race on the schedule, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think it's a smart move. Daytona Beach, then Homestead, Miami, and then you're done with Florida for a while.
Down with Florida for a long while. Of course, the big thing with everything going on this year, we've seen a lot of changes with the pandemic. Chicago, Sonoma, and Watkins Glen all lost their races this year. And then, of course, COTA lost all their events, Formula One, MotoGP, all of it. So for them to have a NASCAR race, that's going to be huge. It'll be interesting to see if NASCAR could bring in more people than the Formula One race. That's going to be really interesting in the fall. Now, one of the big things that was released right before we went on the air, Steve O'Donnell said that there are going to be 28 single-day events where we'll see practice, qualifying, and racing. What are your initial thoughts about the idea of 28 single-day events for the NASCAR Cup Series?
Considering the financial crisis and everything that's going on with the global pandemic right now, I think that's the best way to go about things for now. But hopefully by the start of the 2022 season, we can start getting back to a little normalcy where we don't have to go out, wear masks everywhere, we don't have to socially distance, can start bringing more people back to the track. NASCAR can start selling this hot passes again, get fans back close in the action, and just get back to normal life. But until we can get there, I think 28 single day events, with the practice and qualifying, I think that this is a great way for them to save the team some money. And Kevin Harvick actually recently said that NASCAR would be stupid to go back to the ways that we used to do it before the pandemic, considering everything that's working out and saving all of these teams money. And we all know what happens when racing gets too expensive. Teams close, and that's not good for business. So I feel like having I feel like having these single day events will certainly be beneficial in the teams for the long run, and especially I guess they're gonna call. It was originally supposed to be this year, but now next year, one more year with the Gen 6 car. I guess we can call that a lame duck year for the Gen 6 because everybody's just gonna try to get through the season with that car. Because in 2022, we're finally gonna see the debut of the next gen car, and that car is gonna be the future of NASCAR.
Yeah, it's going to be the future of NASCAR. Really exciting stuff. I know, as you mentioned, this move to save money, 28 single day events. I think it's going to be really fun. And then, especially if we are at a point where fans could come in, see practice, qualifying, race all in the same day, I think it'll be just a really big win for the fans. Make it an all day fun event. I know there's going to be fans out there. Oh, they're going to miss the day of go there Saturday, see qualifying, the Xfinity race, and then the next day the race. But the way things are going, especially with the pandemic, the economy, saving the teams money, I think it's going to be a really big, helpful step for all the teams. Speaking about helpful step, next up in the NASCAR playoffs is Talladega, and one team got really big ahead in the playoffs and essentially shook up the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at the point system, the current NASCAR point system was meant to reward winners. And winning means everything nowadays. And it also allows, opportunity for surprise winners, the opportunity to shake up the season. And one of the most recent surprises is Kurt Busch delivered one of the biggest surprises by winning at Las Vegas. Kurt Busch was the bottom seed driver and 12th enter in Las Vegas, and now he's the first into the round of 8. And this really put everyone else on high alert heading into Talladega. Joe, was Kurt Busch winning at Las Vegas such a big shocker to you?
It was a huge shocker. I mean, essentially, he was 12th. A lot of people, I don't think, anticipate him to go out and win. They anticipate if Kurt Busch was to advance, he'll have good runs, top 10 finishes. No, he stole a victory. Huge surprise by everybody. So it's definitely going to be really interesting to see what happens with Kurt Busch and the season going forward. Because the big thing we saw now, looking at the playoffs, look how close everybody is from being to that cut line. I mean, you guys essentially, Keselowski, he's only 16 positions above the cut line. Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick are really the only ones that are safe, but still a really bad race in Talladega, they're in big trouble. So definitely was a huge shock to everybody and definitely just put everyone on notice.
Yeah, definitely put everyone on notice. And yesterday, Bob Pockers reported that Kurt Busch is 50-50 retiring after the 2021 season. And at the moment right now, he has at least one full-time season left at Chip Ganassi Racing. After winning at Las Vegas and showing that he's still got it, still competitive, does this win change his approach to racing in 2021 and beyond?
I do think it does change the approach of racing when it comes to 2021 and beyond. I know the big thing, of course, for Kurt Busch, if he could live a really good championship run, make it to the Final Four, especially, you're going to see a renewed attitude. And the big thing I feel with Kurt Busch, if he has that renewed attitude, that confidence that I could go out there, win, contend for a championship, 2021, he's going to be talking about, I think, maybe something more in 2022, part-time or join another team, maybe one more extension with Chip Ganassi. Chip Ganassi, of course, he wants winners. If Kurt Busch could show he could still win, that's going to keep him in there.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, his win essentially puts everyone else in the playoffs on high alert heading into Talladega. And if Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin leave Talladega with more than 60 points over the cut line, they're going to be in the round of 8. But if both of them were to finish lower than 36 and score no stage points or get caught up in a big one, have a mechanical issue, then they'll risk everyone else catching up to them. And especially a surprise top 5 by one of the bottom 4, it's really crazy with the way this playoff system is, because Kevin Harvick has had an absolutely marvelous season, and Denny Hamlin's kind of fallen off a little bit recently, but Denny's still in the game, and it's really crazy to think that if something really goes wrong at Talladega and at the Charlotte Roval, that the two dominant drivers of the season could really be in trouble. And here's my question for you. Will we see Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin do the thing of riding around in the back for most of the race and then fight your way through the pack at the end and try to miss the big one and stay out of trouble?
I don't think so. Prior to the stage racing, we will see drivers do that. I could recall Matt Kenseth, Joe Gibbs Racing, just stay in the back till the end, work your way to the front. The problem with that strategy, we've seen a couple times as the drivers are working their way towards the front near the end, the big one occurs and they're caught up in it. Now there's stage points. Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, 10 stage points, that could easily put them further ahead of everybody else to the point where even if they got 2 stage points, didn't finish because of the big one, depending on who the big one takes out, especially other playoff drivers, they could still be locked into the next round as we get to the Charlotte Roval. So I don't see them riding around the back, and really I don't see anybody in the top playoffs. I mean, they're so close to that cut line right now. 10 points could be the difference between advancing and missing the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, when looking at the points, Brad Keselowski and everyone else, it seems like that they're going to have to score some stage points the next 2 weeks and really go for wins. And Austin Dillon is 32 points back in 12th. Do you think Austin Dillon at this point is he in a must-win situation after really impressing everyone during the first round of the playoffs?
Yes, he is in an absolute must-win situation. I mean, taking a look, 32 points behind. So unless Kevin Harvick, Danny Hamlin were to like absolutely drop to the very back, scar no stage points, he'll still be quite a bit behind. Because look at that. When it comes to points behind Kevin Harvick, 84 points. He is so far behind. He really needs to just go out there, win. He could try to get a top 10, get stage points. He's still going to be within those bottom four. And then, of course, you're going to the Roval. It's not going to get easier there. And we know Chase Elliott is a favorite there. So if Chase Elliott doesn't win at Talladega, you're going to have to try to beat Chase Elliott in the Roval. That's a tall order. So definitely Austin Dillon is in a must-win situation.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. Austin Dillon is in a must-win situation, and it's really crazy because nobody expected Austin Dillon to make it out of the first round of the playoffs, and he really surprised everyone by making it this far, to the round of 12. So even if Austin Dillon, if he's not able to advance any further, I think that this can definitely be deemed a successful season for him and Richard Childress Racing. As we've seen earlier in the year, this organization really seems like they're on the rise with Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick. I think that RCR is going to continue to get faster as time moves on.
Definitely seem to be getting faster as the season progresses. Hopefully, Talladega, they can have a good race. One of the things with the playoffs is just really unfortunate where one bad race could really, especially here in the back, ruin your entire round. One of the big things, of course, the Russian Grand Prix, we saw Valtteri Bottas take an easy win over everyone else. The big reason, Lewis Hamilton, his win was essentially taken away when he was handed a 10-second penalty and 2 driver points. The 2 driver points means that put in at 10 points. So if he got another 2 within a 12-month period, he would have missed one race, a 1-race ban. Now the stewards, even though they initially handed this 2-point penalty, they did rescinded it after Lewis appealed. So definitely he's now back to 8 points. So the concerns of being banned for a race has dropped. But Lewis and Mania were caught by surprise of the rule and how harsh it was, considering he just practiced a start. And like Lewis Hamilton said, he didn't endanger anybody. He didn't put anything at risk. And this was one of those rules. It wasn't a sporting regulation, but more the race director's notes. And the penalty essentially was at the discretion of the stewards. But this year in Russia, and then of course last year in the Canadian Grand Prix, we saw Sebastian Vettel demoted to second place during a big battle with Lewis Hamilton. How do you rank the FIA stewards and their job, especially compared to IndyCar and race control and then NASCAR officiating?
Well, to be honest with you, Joe, I don't think nobody's perfect in race control. We've seen some of them. Well, some of the calls have been absolutely correct, right on the spot, and some of them been gray areas, and some of those calls it's been like, I don't really know about that. I understand. Sometimes it can be a really tough job being a steward or working race control in IndyCar, NASCAR. But but I feel like they really do the best job that they can. But and just like in football, when they miss that pass interference call, when you get really mad, sometimes you have that in racing too.
Yeah, you do have that in racing. Too often we hear people complain about, the officiating of all sports. Of course, there's a lot of times where we do have, you know, black and white, straightforward rules that are broken. Here's the penalty. Then, of course, we have these questionable ones. And that's where we really, of course, are talking about a lot of people questioning this one that came out against Lewis Hamilton. Now, of course, the other thing that's going on too, we saw essentially with this penalty, it effectively ruined Lewis Hamilton's race. He's going to try to go for win number 91 in Germany, Nürburgring. One of the big things, of course, with the stewards, especially in Formula One, it has a different rotating members as well, and they try to be seen as the judiciary. Now, of course, we saw the point penalty drop from 10 down to 8. Does this show the stewards are that independent judiciary and they do listen to both sides? Or do you think they probably are reacting thinking that that penalty was a bit too harsh initially.
Well, in anything, Joe, I feel like this. I feel like the stewards do need to look at both sides of the situation, and no matter what it is. And it was really crazy, when all of this come out, and like, wow, if Lewis Hamilton doesn't stay out of trouble with the stewards, he might end up with a one race ban, and that would be really unfortunate for Lewis. But some of those other younger drivers, in the Mercedes pipeline, they might be excited. Like, imagine if George Russell could go from Williams to Mercedes and have a chance to win, then go back down to Williams, don't have a chance to win. So that would have happened. That would have been great for people maybe like George Russell. But in all seriousness, I do think sometimes I think the stewards are a little too harsh in certain instances. But I feel like that they try to do what's right. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they miss it altogether. But the stewards are just like me and you and everyone else in this world. We're all human, not perfect, all make mistakes.
Definitely, that's the thing. It's such a hard job when you're given the information. Yeah, you have the evidence, and then of course it's during the race. This isn't like football where they stop the game, the referees look at it. The race is still going, so I mean, we saw Daniel Ricciardo get a penalty later in the race to the point where he just had to take a time penalty after he crossed the finish line. Lewis Hamilton, he got his penalty before pit stop, so that's why he had to do a 10-second pit stop. Now, another thing, prior to the start of the race, the FIA issued a statement about post-race ceremonies and how now the drivers must have drivers in the driver attire for post-race ceremonies. It doesn't change the pre-race ceremonies, especially when the F1 drivers are kneeling to end racism and wearing shirts that usually say end racism and Black Lives Matter for Lewis Hamilton. Does this take away the bigger platform at post-race? Of course, this is all response to when Lewis Hamilton wore a Breonna Taylor shirt, and that received a lot of attention. Is this a mistake by the FIA to take away that big platform for the drivers?
Oh, I think it's a huge mistake, and I strongly disagree with what the FIA is doing here because that shirt isn't hurting anyone at all. And I think the FIA that they're confused with the. I think they're really confused, and they don't truly understand the message that Lewis is trying to send. Lewis is not trying to be political at all. Yeah, and I believe we talked about this on our last program that this isn't political. It's simply talking about human rights and just standing up for what is morally right. And I really think that the FIA is just showing that, when they say we race as one, that I think they are listening, but I think some of the information is going through one ear and out the other. I don't think all of it is going out. I think that they're listening to maybe 70% of it, and then the other 30%, is just flowing through easily. And I really think that them, taking this away is not good at all. And I don't think it's causing any type of issues at all. The only the only people that is causing issues too are the people who really need to check their hearts.
Yeah, and the other thing about this too, yeah, FIA say, oh, we'll still have the pre-race ceremony. Well, a lot of folks don't tune into the pre-race ceremony. It's the post-race that we see victory lane celebration, the most media attention. When Lewis Hamilton wore that shirt, he got a lot of attention, a lot of news spread all around the world about the case of what happened to Breonna Taylor in the United States. So I feel this is totally a mistake by the FIA to take away such a big platform. Essentially, they're saying, oh, here's where we're concerned about. Let's end racism, but let's do that in the pre-race. And then the post-race, we don't want, we just want to keep it formal, which I feel is just really missing the mark. And especially we got the Turkish Grand Prix. Of course, past episodes, we talked about the femicide problem in Turkey. Still a lot of questions. Will a driver or drivers bring up about the femicide problem once they get to Turkey? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens to the upcoming Formula One races. Now, of course, we're going to be talking more about Formula One later on in the program as well, but definitely we'll turn to the States and some big news that occurred this past weekend.
Yeah, some big news. History was made. by Gracie Trotter, who won the ARCA Menard Series West race at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway Bull Ring. And Gracie Trotter also made history a couple of weeks ago by winning a late model race at Hickory Speedway. And Gracie is currently a Toyota development driver and coming up through the ranks. She's a 19-year-old driver and gaining a lot of attention across the motorsports world, especially after winning that ARCA West race. Joe, for all the fans out there who don't know who Gracie Trotter is, what's going to be the road that Gracie is most likely to take to get to the NASCAR Cup Series?
Well, definitely, it's a really interesting road that she's going to be taking. Part of the reason why she is part of the Toyota driver development, so she got a good amount of backing, and then of course the drivers NASCAR Drive for Diversity program. So definitely, she has a lot of support going up. When it comes to which racing series we might see her, of course, right now she's in the ARCA West Series, so a lot of West Coast races, a lot of short tracks. Of course, there's the ARCA Menard Series. That's where we see currently Haley Deegan racing. There you see the super speedways of Daytona, Talladega, the NASCAR short tracks, and of course, much more short tracks as well, and a couple intermediate speedways. Then, of course, you got the Gander RV Truck Series. That's where you see more mile and a half and NASCAR Cup Series tracks as well, including the road courses. We know next year, Circuits of America is going to have a truck race. From Gander RV Trucks, you got the Xfinity Series, and then, of course, the Xfinity Series, that's essentially one step away from the Cup Series. So there's a lot of potential for where Gracie could climb up this series, where it goes to ARC Menards, to Gander Trucks, Xfinity. Definitely a lot of potential for her and what route to take.
Yeah, definitely a lot of potential for Gracie Trotter. Yeah. I feel like we're certainly gonna see her continue to do well to close out the 2020 ARCA Menard Series West season, and maybe next season we'll see her in the ARCA Menard Series National Tour, where we're gonna see her compete against against drivers driving more competitive equipment, and maybe we'll see her in ARCA Menard Series National for a year or two, and then go to the truck series for a couple of years, and then Xfinity, and then on the way to Cup. And I really do feel like that Gracie Trotter has a lot of potential to grow and develop as a driver. And tomorrow we'll have more information about Gracie Trotter, along with reports on all the women racing across the world on our Grit Girls program. Presented by Grit Network and Racers, the girls behind the helmet. And you can catch that program tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 9:30 a.m. Pacific.
Last Thursday, it was announced that Oliver Askew would miss the Harvest Grand Prix. Oliver had been suffering balance and coordination issues and was not medically cleared by IndyCar medical team. Helio Castroneves is replacing Oliver Askew in the McLaren SD race car for the Harvest Grand Prix weekend. Askew had been suffering concussion-like symptoms since the Indianapolis 500 when he hit the inside wall exiting turn 4. Concussions are notoriously hard to diagnose without the patient describing the symptoms. After cleared to race following the August 23rd Indianapolis 500, Askew started seeing the symptoms of a concussion. He started experiencing dizziness, sleeping difficulties, headaches, and confusions. He tried to play through it until friends and family encouraged him to seek medical treatment. He was diagnosed with a concussion and working on a plan with the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center Sports Medicine Concussion Program. This is the same program that helped NASCAR star Dale Earnhardt Jr. receive care after concussions in 2012 and 2016. IndyCar return to racing protocol is not a set timetable, but instead a graduated method of recovery from the concussion. It starts with resting once a concussion has been recognized, followed by a graduated return back to racing. One test is the impact test. The medical director will arrange the driver to take the impact test. If the driver's test results demonstrates no significant loss of neurocognitive function as compared to baseline test results, the medical director will notify IndyCar officials that the driver is medically cleared to resume driving. Concussion injuries are a risk many athletes across sports face, and in auto racing, it is a major blunt force trauma that could at times be fatal to a race car driver. So, how do one recognize a concussion? Here are the symptoms of a concussion. The symptoms of concussions are subjectively and notoriously non-specific. This includes blurred vision, confusion, dizziness, feelings of haziness, foggy or groggy, headaches, difficulty staying focused, nausea, sensitive to light or sound, or just not feeling right. If any of these conditions following a crash may be a symptom of a concussion, and since they are subjective, there is no way that a physician evaluating a driver can know the driver is experiencing the symptoms of a concussion unless the driver disclosed the symptoms to the medical physician. If you are feeling these symptoms, especially after a head injury, it is advised to seek medical attention and inform medical personnel about all the symptoms one is feeling. Untreated, a concussion can become worse as it takes less force to receive another concussion. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was sidelined from concussion injuries and ultimately retired due to this. Now all major motorsport series have concussion protocols. It is unfortunate we're not going to see Oliver Askew at the racetrack this upcoming weekend, but we could definitely hope to see a healthy Oliver Askew in the car again, especially in 2021, where he could start the season with a new attitude and try to go for a win. Now, Kobe, one question, of course, we've seen all the series take concussions very seriously, and teams are supportive of drivers taking care of their health. McLaren SP said they support Oliver Askew's decision to sit out. Are we really past the days where a driver was notoriously known for racing in less than ideal health, and now drivers could confidently disclose their health, maybe miss a race or two, and not essentially lose a championship hope or not risk losing their job?
Sometimes I feel like these drivers need to be safe for themselves because it's a really crazy situation, and I feel like that it's really crazy looking at this situation, knowing how great the IndyCar's medical team is. It's really strange how this concussion was missed with Oliver Askew, and it's really crazy that he hasn't been feeling well or like himself since that hard crash in the Indianapolis 500, and he's raced in several IndyCar races since then, and it's really scary that Oliver Askew was not well, but he was out there racing on the track with the other drivers, and and now it all makes sense because since that crash, Oliver Askew really hasn't looked like himself at all. It was like him and Pato O'Ward were like on equal footing, and then after that crash, it seemed like Pato O'Ward kind of went to another level while Oliver Askew stayed on the same level. Yeah, but I'm really glad that he finally decided to seek out help, figure out try to go to the doctor, figure out what the issue is, and most importantly, really hope that Oliver is able to recover and understand it's really hard to watch another driver drop go out there and drive your car. And you remember when Jimmy Johnson had tested positive for COVID-19, Jimmy's wife Chandra was experiencing symptoms of the virus, and then out of precaution, Jimmy decided to get tested, and it ended it ended his long streak of running consecutive cup races, and then it left a big what if scenario. What if Jimmy Johnson didn't miss the Breakout 400? Could he have pointed his way into the playoffs? But yeah, it was really unfortunate for Jimmy there. But Jimmy did the right thing. As soon as his wife showed symptoms, he decided to get tested so he didn't spread the virus to somebody else at the racetrack. Yeah. But with a lot of these drivers, they really do need to be safe from themselves because you never know what can happen. I think the fear for a lot of these drivers are if this replacement goes out there and performs better than me, then what's it gonna mean for me? But yeah, Arrow McLaren SP got a brilliant substitute for Oliver Askew and Helio Castroneves, lots and lots of years of IndyCar experience and within the Team Penske camp. So I think Helio Castroneves is going to bring a lot to Arrow McLaren SP, and Helio's up, getting up there in age now. And I don't think Oliver's going to have to worry about Helio still in his seat full time. But but I do understand, if it was like some younger driver coming up from Indy Lights who think could be the next Joseph Newgarden or whatever, I would certainly be a little nervous. Like if he goes out there and outperforms me, and then at the end of the year when the team is evaluating their driver lineup, are they gonna keep me, or are they gonna go with the new best young driver on the block?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. For overall, it does seem like the teams, especially after what happened to Dale Earnhardt Jr., are taking concussions very seriously. It's hard for any driver to give up their spot and watch their car run around a track. Of course, it's an opportunity for that substitute driver. There's no doubt Helio Castroneves is looking to making a statement and hopefully get a ride somewhere next year. But I do see where Oliver Askew has the confidence that Errol Smith Peterson Racing, they say we support him, we stand behind him. They're going to want him to be healthy again, hopefully for St. Pete, so he could come back, try to go for one win. But if not St. Pete, definitely 2021 and for many years to come. Now, of course, Oliver Askew is one of many drivers in the World Motorsport League, and they had a big announcement that we reported late last week.
Yeah, late last week had a big announcement from Matt White at Grid World Motorsport League. They announced that they're going to be returning to a regular 2020 season. They were considering a 2020-2021 super season to ensure that all series would compete, but eventually reverted back to just having a single World Motorsport League season. Joe, why did the Grid World Motorsport League decide to revert back to a regular season?
So part of the main reason why they reverted back was because initially when the pandemic started up and we were seeing NASCAR races, IMSA races, races around the world being postponed, put on hold, there was a lot of discussion about races going not just for 2020, but 2020, 2021. MotoGP was talking about a season that will start in 2020 and 2021. Formula One, many other series. So to encompass all the series, the Greater World Motorsport League considered the super season. Now, all the leagues except one have started up going, and all of them are ending in the year 2020. So essentially, that eliminates the need for a super season. So it's really exciting that we are going to see a champion in the Grid World Motorsport League in 2020.
Yeah. Looking at the standings, we have Phil Hansen, who races for United Autosports in the World Endurance Championship, continuing to lead his United Autosports teammate Felipe Albuquerque, and then we have Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton round out the top three. Now I'm gonna start off with some quick takes with Joe.
One of the big news that came out, Chad Canals will not be the crew chief for William Byron in 2021. Chad Canals has been promoted to Vice President of Competition. He is replacing Jeff Andrews, the current Vice President, has been promoted up to Executive Vice President and General Manager of Hendrick Motorsports. Canals has 82 Cup wins so far and 7 championships with Jimmy Johnson. No word on Byron's new crew chief. It'll be the third different crew chief for William Byron in the Cup Series.
The top two in the FIA Formula 2 Championship will take part in the first free practice session at the Eiffel Grand Prix in Nürburgring. Mick Schumacher is going to be taking Antonio Giovinazzi's seat at Alfa Romeo, and Callum Ilott is going to be replacing Roman Grosjean at Haas. And Mick Schumacher is currently the Formula 2 points leader and rumored to be in Formula 1 next year, possibly with that Alfa Romeo racing team.
Formula E team Mahindra becomes the first FIA team to be certified for environmentally sustainable practices. The FIA Environmental Accreditation Program is aimed at helping motorsports and mobility stakeholders worldwide. The 3-star accreditation translates to best practices by an OEM committed to essentially reducing greenhouse gases emissions and try to, of course, make a more environmental sustainable environment. Mahindra racing efforts are and will continue to be in tandem with Mahindra Group, committed and quest to achieve group-wide carbon neutrality. Of course, Mahindra is a Formula E team currently in Formula E.
Talladega Super Speedway is at full capacity in these uncertain times for the NASCAR Cup Series race this weekend. But there was a smaller number of tickets available for the single day NASCAR Cup Series race. It will be a socially distanced crowd, and this is the second race of the round of 12 in the playoffs. And before we end tonight, we want to revisit the 2021 NASCAR schedule. Been the big news so far, throughout the early part of the week. And certainly the past 24 hours have definitely been really crazy with all of these announcements and everything going on. And it's such a different schedule to what we've seen in recent years in comparison to the minor tweaks here and there mentioned earlier in the program. NASCAR in recent years, they like switching around races, like we're gonna move this race here and move this race there, try to make it seem new. And with this new schedule that they just dropped today, officially, this new schedule is certainly going to present a lot of challenges all around. Joe, is this going to be new? NASCAR going to have different tracks each year on the schedule going forward, like a rotating tracks, or will the 2021 schedule be very similar to 2022 and beyond?
That's a really good question, and we don't exactly know yet. We know there's going to be some tracks that are going to be there annually: Darlington, Daytona, Talladega. These new circuits, Circuit of America, if Texas Motor Speedway doesn't have the All Star race and they get another Cup Series race for the points, will we see Circuits of America next year? Could we see another road course? It's going to be really interesting to see. I haven't heard any details about, but if that's something where we see a popular road course event, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more road courses being added to future seasons starting in 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. I really think that NASCAR did a solid job with the 2021 schedule. Got a lot of new going on. Yeah, got returning to Nashville. Going to be really cool to see the Cup Series race there, and then also package going to be 750 horsepower low downforce there. Also, Darlington was a 550 horsepower high downforce race. Now they got 750 horsepower and low downforce, something that the fans have been asking for. So kudos to NASCAR, listening to the fans there. And 6 road course races is going to be really crazy. And I think that that's certainly going to suit a driver like Chase Elliott, who's been really not, really been not knocking the ball out of the park at these road courses. I think Chase Elliott is really one of the better road course racers in NASCAR right now, and just the whole schedule. It's just really cool. And that dirt race at Bristol is going to be really interesting. I understand a lot of people aren't going to like it now, but if that race proves to be a success, a lot of people are going to they're gonna be like, yeah, I was wrong. This is a great race. It's just something we're just gonna have to wait and see. But certainly the intrigue is there of wondering what a Bristol dirt race is gonna look like with the NASCAR Cup Series, and we also want to hear from the viewers out there and their opinions. And, and looking back at the history of the tracks in NASCAR, it's been no secret. The late '90s saw a lot of mile-and-a-half ovals built all around the U.S. And NASCAR wanted to build more tracks in New York, Oregon, and the Pacific Northwest in general, but it just didn't work out. And many thought short tracks and old tracks outside the big markets, might be in some trouble. And considering everything that's going on, is this NASCAR saying that mindset has disappeared and that this version of new NASCAR with a new vision is separate from what we saw in the '90s and really up until the end of Brian Francis' tenure?
It does appear like that. Of course, when NASCAR was really growing in the 90s, Bill France Jr. was in charge, and we were seeing all the mile and a half come in. We saw North Wilkesboro disappear. They wanted tracks in big markets, Chicagoland, for example, right there in the Chicago area, Auto Club Speedway, Los Angeles. We've seen schedules change to give those races bigger dates. So we saw Auto Club Speedway become the second race following the Daytona 500 because it was a mile and a half. So you had a big crowd of over 100,000, large TV market. Now we're seeing a sort of a shift where we're still seeing the TV markets are still a big deal. California is now going to be the third race, but Homestead, Miami, that's another big market as well. Of course, Nashville, they're 2 hours outside of the town, so that's going to be pretty big as well. So I do think we're still seeing the business side. They want to be where there's the crowds, the big television markets. They do see, I think now, the diversity of the tracks is what the fans want. The mile and a half ovals, they're great for filling it up with over 100,000, seeing the high speed horsepower. But it hasn't been doing the greatest job getting fans excited, bringing new fans in. A short track in California, that's going to be huge for NASCAR. These road course races, especially Road America, Circuits of America, that's going to bring people really excited about it. And then if they rotate to different road courses, it's a win for the entire racing industry. I do see this being a new vision, different from what we saw in the 90s under the France family.
Yeah, and speaking of all things new, when we're looking at things with the two with the you remember for so many years we had 2 road courses on the schedule, Sonoma, Watkins Glen, then we had a third road course join the schedule with the Charlotte Roval, and all but one road course race is in the regular season. So we're gonna have 6 total road courses now on the schedule. Yeah, we had 3, and now it's times 2. with the addition of all of these road courses, do you think the teams will step up their road course program now?
Yes, they have to step up their road course program. I mean, 36 races, essentially 6 races are on the road courses. That's just about one every 6 race is going to be on a road course if you were to work mathematically. Of course, we do know we have road courses that are near each other with in between breaks with an oval in between. But still, that's 6 potential races to help you win the championship. You can't just no longer say Watkins Glen, Sonoma, we're not going to win there. We're not going to really bother. Let's just try to go for a good race. Now you have more road courses. You got to go out there to win. If you can't win a road course, in fact, I'll say it. If you don't win at least 1 or 2 road courses, you're not going to make it far into playoffs because you need to be really good at all these tracks, and the road courses are going to be even more important in 2021.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super important for teams to put a lot more effort into their road course racing program. And it's really crazy to see how road course racing has transitioned over the years. Now, most NASCAR drivers have really improved their road course racing skills, and we don't really need to call on what they call the road course ringers anymore, where you see some drivers from IMSA. Back in the day when they were at the Grand Am in the American Le Mans Series, we see those drivers come over and take the fight to the NASCAR regulars. And now we don't really see a lot of road course ringers anymore because NASCAR drivers have gotten a lot better at road course racing. And I remember back in back in the day when I was I'm still young obviously, but not too far back in the day. But in the mid 2000s when I was just coming along watching NASCAR, I remember some of the drivers they didn't really put too much effort on a road course. I'd be like, hey, this is just a week. I'm just gonna ride around and it's going and I'm just gonna just try my best to just stay on the road and bring home a respectable finish, whatever. Yeah, and then go back to the ovals where I'm strong at. And now with 6 road course races, I feel I feel like that mindset back then would not work now because you need to really go out there and embrace road course racing if you want to have a shot to win those races and also to have a shot at the championship. And looking at Bubba Wallace's situation, it's not on road courses but on super speedways. Since Bubba Wallace had to get in a different mindset at super speedways. Instead of dreading going to those tracks, Daytona and Talladega, he had to embrace them. And ever since Bubba's mindset has